On my wedding day, my sister schemed to ruin me by drugging my champagne. Yet I switched our drinks. As she toasted, she fell face first into the cake. My family ignored every call while I was hospitalized. Yet they billed me for a vacation I was barred from joining, $3,800, travel and hotel. I returned exactly $1 using the note, incorrect patient. Next I locked each shared card, halted every transaction, and mailed technical support once. Their dispute failed completely. The server responded, main account owner validated the freeze. I grinned and then signed out. During my ceremony, my sibling attempted to ruin me by drugging my drink, but I switched our flutes. Upon her speech, she tumbled straight into the dessert. My $10,200 marriage cake was completely ruined. However, it was the best cash I've ever used. Why? Because slumped in that vivid scarlet ruin was my sibling ready to drift away. She had intentionally spiked me during my ceremony to turn me into a drunken wreck before my wealthy in-laws. I permitted her to succeed, but at a much higher price. A sneaky glass swap and a fake smirk created the most glorious sight of my existence. My lovely sister had fainted amidst the crumbs of red velvet. But to comprehend why my sibling meant to wreck my big day, I must take you through the planning. I was Charlotte, age 31, and served as a marketing lead for a prestigious company in Charleston. I had always prided myself on being confident and logical. My younger sibling, Emily, 29, called herself a creator, which was a fancy phrase for being jobless and maintaining a fake life on social apps. What she did not show to her 15,000 fans was the $60,000 credit card debt she'd been hiding from our folks. My folks, Richard and Deborah, had always favored Emily. Constant. It defied every logic, reason, and sense of fairness. It didn't matter if I earned top grades, grants, or career promotions. Emily could post a selfie with a motivational quote found on Pinterest, which her mother would put in a frame. Emily's envy peaked when I got engaged to James. James, an orthopedic surgery resident at the clinic, was brilliant and kind, with hands meant for fixing shattered bones and a smile that made my pulse race. What really sent Emily into a tailspin was his surname, not his job or heart. James comes from historic Charleston wealth. The kind of family whose ancestors signed major papers and had vessels named after them. The type of family that is still invited to lawn parties at grand estates and the sort of family Emily desperately craved to meet. Throughout the wedding planning, she turned into a total nightmare. It started 3 months before the ceremony. I was at my house reviewing vendor papers when Emily suddenly arrived. She walked in wearing yoga attire that cost more than most people's entire food budget, and she carried a luxury bag that I knew she couldn't pay for. "I've been thinking," she said without bothering to say hello. "I should be your maid of honor." I glanced up from my laptop. "Emily, I already chose Rachel, your lawyer friend." She scrunched her nose as if she smelled something foul. "Charlotte, this is a gala with old money vibes. Do you truly want someone who wears suits to everything standing by you in images that will be in the social columns? Rachel is my closest friend. She's been there for me through it all, and I'm your sister." Emily's tone took on that bratty edge that I knew far too well. "Your only sister? What will people assume if your own blood isn't your maid of honor? It'll look like we're fighting. It'll look bad for both of us. Besides, I need this, Charlotte. Do you realize how good this will be for my image? A wedding at the Grand Charleston Hotel with James's folks. I could get thousands of fans. I should have refused immediately. I should have stood my ground. But then she called her mother. 2 hours later, both our folks arrived at my place. Mother was already dabbing her eyes with a stitched handkerchief. And father wore his stern face, which he'd used for years of making me feel guilty for simply breathing. "Charlotte, honey," mother said, holding my hands in hers. "Emily is crushed. Totally crushed. She feels like you don't love her." "That's not, I never claimed that. I just wanted, your sister is struggling through a hard time right now," father cut in, his voice using the firm tone he used when a matter was closed before it started. "The least you can do is involve her in your big day. Make her feel special. Just please your sister," mother said, rubbing my hand. "Don't make her miserable. It's one day, Charlotte. Surely you can be kind for one day." The guilt trip was classic. They'd done this my whole life, making Emily's moods my job and her joy my cross to bear. "Fine," I answered. The word felt like dust. "You can be the maid of honor." Emily yelled and clapped her hands. Mother was glowing. Father gave a nod of approval. When I phoned Rachel to share the news, she was quiet for a long beat. "Are you sure about this, Char?" "No," I admitted. "But it's easier than fighting everyone." Easier isn't always better. She was right, clearly. But I had already made my first mistake. I had already given in. I had no clue that this concession had paved the way for Emily's most cruel plot. Emily messaged me 2 weeks before the wedding. "Need you to cover my bridesmaid gown. I'm a bit broke this month." Without asking me, she chose a $2,200 silk dress from a boutique that required bookings and served bubbly during fittings. When I suggested more affordable options for the group, she scoffed. "You're joining old money, Charlotte. We can't appear cheap in the images. What would James' family assume?" I sent the funds without fighting. Looking back, standing in that hall with the truth of what she had plotted for me, I can see it all clearly. Every ask, every guilt trip, and every time our folks forced me to ignore my needs to feed her ego had led to this. Emily didn't just want to be in my wedding. She meant to wreck it, and I almost let her. The Charleston Historic Hotel Hall represented Southern beauty. Crystal fixtures cast soft light on round tables draped in ivory silk with every centerpiece showing a flow of white petals and trailing vines. The timber floors sparkled, mirroring the glow from hundreds of tea lights. At the back of the room on its own stand, stood the crown jewel, which had cost me more than most people's monthly bills. Wedding cake. 7 tiers of red velvet brilliance, each layered in white frosting and detailed with gold leaf that caught light like scattered stars. Handcrafted sugar petals, peonies, roses, and gardenias flowed down one side in a breathtaking show of the baker's talent. It cost $10,200, and it was surely worth every cent, just not for the reasons I had expected. I sat at the main table, exactly where I had indicated on my carefully made seating map. As a marketing lead, I grasped the power of an image, the value of angles, and how a photo can either build a story or break a brand. I had spent hours fixing this layout. James sat to my left, incredibly handsome in his tailored suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. And his hand warm over mine on the white cloth. Emily sat to my right, wearing a champagne silk gown that surely cost more than she'd admit, with her hair in a complex bun that must have taken forever. Beside James stood Brian, his best pal and main groomsman, a heart doctor with an easy smile and a calm vibe that made him perfect for the job. I had told the hotel staff exactly about this setup. Groom on the left meant that almost every photo of us as a duo showed us facing one another. My facial profile was usually better. The light would catch my features perfectly. I thought I had planned for everything. The hotel gave us matching crystal champagne cups with no marks or identifying traits. They caught the candle glow as the bubbles rose in pretty golden paths through the costly vintage that James' folks had provided for the toast. The main course had just been cleared away. Herb-crusted lamb with glazed greens beautifully served. The staff moved fast between tables with the soft ring of porcelain plates creating a classy song. Chatter hummed around us, broken by fits of laughter from James' school friends at table 7. James leaned near my ear, his breath hot on my skin. "Did you see Uncle Richard trying to flirt with your great-aunt Miriam? I think he's had too much drink." I turned fully to my left to face him, smiling, and angled my body to face my new husband. In my side vision, I saw Emily's hand shifting to my right. Her hand slid over the table with practiced skill, reaching as if to fix my name card, which had moved slightly during dinner. A very simple act, helpful even. But when her hand touched my champagne cup, it leaned, just a bit. The clear fluid from the tiny glass bottle she gripped in her hand poured into my drink and quickly vanished into the fizz. The bubbles hid everything, leaving no color change, mark, or sign that anything had switched. She pulled her hand back fast, fixing my name card with a smug grin. She thought no one saw, but Emily had ignored Rachel. My best friend from law school sat at the main table right across from us with a perfect view of the head table. Emily had been so focused on me and James, ensuring we didn't spot her little move that she'd completely missed the woman with a defense lawyer's eye for detail and the gut of someone who had spent years observing how people break laws. Rachel had seen it all. The sliding hand. The falling fluid. Emily's smirk. My phone, which was face up on the table beside my champagne cup, buzzed. Zist. The sound was tiny, lost in the background noise of 200 guests partying. But I felt it and saw the screen glow with a new message. I looked down quickly. Rachel sent a text. 5 short words, all capital letters. Swap your glasses. She drugged it. My pulse stopped, literally froze, then began again with a hard thud in my throat, chest, and hands. The room tilted slightly, the fixture lights suddenly too bright, and the noise around me was too much. I sat still with every part of my body locking in place. But years of client pitches, high-stakes talks, and keeping calm when plans failed or bosses panicked all had an effect. My face stayed cool, flat, maybe a bit tired as any bride might be checking a text at her party, but nothing more. I looked up slowly and on purpose, meeting Rachel's gaze across the hall. She gave me a tiny nod. Firm. Sure. She was certain she had seen it. I looked down at the champagne cup in front of me. The golden drink sparkled safely with bubbles rising in those pretty paths. It looked just like James's, Brian's, and Emily's flutes. But it wasn't. This was no longer basic sibling rivalry. This was not Emily throwing a fit, making claims, or crying to our folks. This was a planned, specific strike meant to ruin my name in front of my husband's folks. She'd set it up. I had been waiting for the right second. She wanted me to drink that cup. They wanted me to get dizzy, muddled, and messy. Did she want James's family, the high-class old money group she was so obsessed with, to watch me shame myself? To see their new daughter-in-law as a drunk? As someone unfit for their son who couldn't handle her wine at her own wedding? The doormat in me, the one who'd spent 31 years hiding my feelings and fixing Emily's scenes when our folks demanded I make her happy, that version of Charlotte died. I knew I had to act. Trade the glasses and flip Emily's trap against her. But she was right there, less than 2 feet away, watching both champagne cups like a predator. I sat frozen in my chair, very aware of every detail, the weight of my phone, the water beads on the outside of the tainted flute, and Emily's fast and eager breathing near me, awaiting her win. She was watching those cups, both of them, and I couldn't move while she was staring. I needed a chance, a distraction. I sat there, heart thudding, and waited. James held my hand, thinking my stiffness was wedding day nerves. "Are you okay?" he said quietly. "Perfect," I said, the lie smooth and ready. Then luck sent me the most powerful woman I'd ever met. I heard it. The snap of heels on wood. High-end heels, the kind that cost more than some people's car loans. The sound came from behind us from the VIP lounge, a special room kept by the hotel for close family to use for touch-ups and quiet breaks. The door swung open. Mrs. Margaret walked out. James's mother was a powerhouse at 5 feet 6 inches. Her designer gown, blue silk with heavy jewels that likely cost more than my SUV, fit her perfectly. Her gray hair was set in a lovely bun and diamond studs caught the light. She had surely fixed her makeup as her lips were now a bold shade of classic red. She walked along the rear row of chairs just behind the head table. Click, click, click. In the small gap between courses, the sound of her heels echoed over the quiet talk. I felt Emily go stiff beside me. If there was one thing my sister couldn't skip, it was the chance to wow someone high status. And Mrs. Margaret was the most vital person at this party. The leader of a family whose name was on walls and fund lists and whose word could open or shut doors forever. Emily's head turned so fast. I'm shocked she didn't get a neck cramp. She almost leaped out of her seat, diving right into Mrs. Margaret's way with the joy of a puppy meeting its owner after a long day. "Oh, Mrs. Margaret." Emily's voice went up an octave, dripping with fake charm. "Were you relaxing in the VIP lounge too? I hope the party isn't too much for you. I know these galas can be totally draining, especially with so many people wanting your time." She had totally turned her back on the table. To me, to the cups. Rachel's note burned in my head. "Swap your glasses." This was it, my only shot. My hands moved to the base of both champagne flutes. My fingers were rock steady. Years of moving fragile pitch boards had given me a skill I hadn't valued until now. I didn't pick up the cups. That would be too obvious and loud. Even with Emily's back turned, someone might see, a guest, a waiter, even James if he happened to look down. Instead, I glided them. Meanwhile, my sister's praise continued behind me. "I must say," Emily said, reaching out to gently pat the arm of Mrs. Margaret's dress without waiting for a reply. "This designer gown was absolutely made for you. The jewels, the fit, it's perfection. You have the most amazing taste in style. I was just telling Charlotte earlier how classy you looked. Truly classy." The silk cloth was perfect for this, slick, shiny, with just enough grip to guide but not stop movement. I lightly pushed on the bottoms of both cups, sliding my drugged glass toward Emily's spot and pulling her clean glass toward mine. They glided over the fabric like skaters on ice, barely a hair above the wood, the fluid inside hardly shaking. Swish! I rotated the new cup slightly in my spot, so that Emily's tiny lipstick mark on the edge faced away from where she'd been sitting. The whole move took 5 seconds, which was exactly how long it took Emily to end her fake comment on the dress and start talking about how much she loved Mrs. Margaret's charity work with the children's clinic. No one saw. The waiters were at the other side of the hall, and the guests were busy with their own chatter. James was watching his Uncle Richard, who had cornered my Aunt Miriam near the bar, but Rachel saw. I glanced at the VIP table. She was holding her wine, but her eyes were on me. When our eyes met, the corner of her mouth lifted in a tiny smirk. She held her cup up slightly, making a toast only I could see. My team of allies had worked perfectly, and I was sure Rachel would not look away from my sister for the rest of the night. She'd watch. She was going to record. She would be ready. Mrs. Margaret backed away from Emily's gaze with the skill of someone who had handled fake people for years. How sweet of you to say, dear. If you'll excuse me, I must get back to my table. She moved away, leaving a scent of expensive perfume. Emily returned to her chair, almost hopping into it, her face red with pride. She thought she just earned major points with my mother-in-law, that she'd had a great networking win for an Instagram post later. She glanced at the table. The 2 champagne flutes sat just as they had before she turned. Same spots, same levels, and the innocent shine of gold bubbles. Her eyes stayed on them for a second before looking away. Zero doubt. Don't worry. Why should there be? They looked identical, and her ego, her total faith that she'd tricked me, that her plan was perfect, had killed any urge to double-check. She reached for the cup in front of her, the drugged one. Her grin was toxic and winning. Come on, she said, moving the crystal cup toward me. Let's drink to your joy, Charlotte. I held up my clean glass, forcing my face into a smile full of hidden truth. Every bit of pride, every piece of late justice, every year of being told to please her, I put into that grin. Thank you, sister, I said softly. For a night we won't forget. The crystal cups made a sharp, clear ring that echoed over our side of the table. Clink! Emily held the cup to her mouth and drank deep, her eyes on mine over the edge. She thought she was watching her plot work, that she was seeing the start of my fall. I drank my clean bubbly while watching her swallow her own fate. The clear melatonin in whatever amount she had set for me went down her throat with the pricey champagne. She breathed out happily and set down her cup, grinning. I smiled back and waited. After the toast, I made my move. I had to sell it. Emily had to be sure her plan was working as she intended, so I went quiet. I moved a bit away from the table talk, letting my grin fade into something more blank, still. When James asked about the kick schedule, I replied in soft, vague words. Brian tried to pull me into a joke about bad wedding talks they'd heard in med school, but I only gave a small laugh. Emily saw it right away. I could feel her eyes on me. The way she leaned in, checking my face for signs of the drugs working. I gave her what she craved. A bride who turned quiet, lost, and blank. Her lip curled. She thought it was working. I pretended I was starting to feel the melatonin. That in a few minutes, I'd be tripping, slurring, and shaming myself before 200 guests and James's whole family. She sat back in her seat, almost shaking with joy, and her pride grew with every second. But Emily didn't realize, because her ego blinded her, that the drugs were already in her body, hitting her blood and going to her brain. The host's voice boomed over the speakers, smooth and clean. Friends, we now ask the best man to share a few words. The hall went quiet, talk fading as guests looked at the small stage by the cake. Brian stood, fixing his coat with a relaxed grin. I checked the clock. The night was on time, just past 8 p.m. He went to the mic, and for the next few minutes, the whole room roared. Tales of James' bad cooking at their flat during residency. James once accidentally wore wrong shoes to a big hospital talk. Brian knew James was serious about me when he began doing his wash instead of buying new clothes when he ran out of clean ones. The timing was great. Brian's talk made a gap, a time when all eyes were elsewhere, letting Emily's small body changes go unseen in the hall. I saw her from the corner of my eye. She was still grinning and playing her part as the bridesmaid. But I saw it. The way she moved slightly in her chair. Her hand went up to tap her head, making a small frown. The melatonin was starting to hit. Liquid melatonin works faster than pills, hitting the blood quick. Emily would feel it now, a heaviness in her arms and a soft fog in her head. But she'd think it was nerves over her talk. Or maybe the wine had hit a bit harder. She wouldn't know the truth. Brian finished his talk to loud cheers and sat back down, hitting James on the back. James stood to hug his pal, and the two had a moment that the photographers caught many times. The host came back to the mic. Thanks, Brian. Now, we'd like to hear from the maid of honor. The time was here. Emily stood. I watched her close and remembered every part. She had to hold herself up with one hand on the wood. The small pause before she left her chair, as if finding her balance, and the fake joy in her face that didn't reach her eyes. She thought it was nerves. I knew it was the drugs hitting, making her head light and her limbs feel heavy. In 10 more minutes, she'd be fighting to stay awake. But for now, she had enough focus and fake pride to feel in control. She moved to the stage, her steps a bit slower than normal, but steady, and she went right for the spot she'd picked, next to the cake. Of course. The $10,200 red velvet work, with gold leaf and sugar flowers, would be the perfect background for her photos. The pricey cake would show wealth and status. It was proof she belonged in this world. She stood as close to the cake as she could. Her left hand held a full wine glass, while her right took the host's mic. That pretty, dangerous wireless mic, which would send every word to the hall. Emily didn't think about it. She didn't think what would happen if she lost control of her words, if the drugs made her honest. She just smiled at the crowd and spoke. Good evening, everyone, she said, her voice loud in the speakers. I'm Emily, Charlotte's sister. Her words were clean, but I saw the work it took. The way she stood too still, trying not to sway. I've known Charlotte my whole life, and I have to say, she paused for the crowd, it's been a ride watching her find someone good enough. People laughed. Charlotte has always been the perfect one, the organized one, the one with the plans and the job. There was a bite in her voice now, something mean behind the fake sweetness. And now she has the perfect man from the perfect family. I sat there, hand in James, holding tight. He had no idea. No one did. Emily held up her glass and it caught the light. So, to Charlotte, she said, her smile wide and toxic. To my perfect sister and her perfect life. People cheered, holding up their glasses. But I sat there watching and waiting. Waiting for the drugs to hit. Waiting for justice. Waiting for my sister to fall. The cheers were still loud when Emily held up her glass. She was the perfect sister, the polite bridesmaid. But I knew the truth. She spoke to me and James. May your marriage be everything mine will be one day. People hummed in agreement. James's hand was warm in mine. Emily took a long, winning gulp from the cup she had spiked. The shift wasn't instant. She set the glass down, still faking her role. But then I saw it. Her feet were wobbly and her hand hit the stand as if the floor moved. Thank you all for, her words were thick. She blinked fast, eyes getting heavy. The crystal cup shook. Rachel leaned near me. How much did she put in? I don't know, I said, but judging by how fast it's hitting, a lot. She swayed hard, fingers white on the mic. The hall went dead quiet as 300 people watched my sister's fake act fall apart. Why? Her confused, scared voice boomed over the speakers. Why is the roof spinning? The wine glass fell first. It dropped in slow motion, hitting the stage floor. The sound was like a gun. In the silence, Emily's legs gave out. She leaned forward, hands still on the mic in a death grip. Her body fell with a heavy weight. With no reflex to catch herself, the end was bad. Boom! 7 tiers of $10,200 red velvet cake exploded. Emily's face hit first, then her body, and her $2,200 gown sank into the ruin. Instead of water, there was frosting and crumbs. It looked like a crime scene. My sister lay still in the mess, hair full of icing, dress ruined. My mother screamed. James moved fast. His doctor mode kicked in. He was on stage in seconds, tuxedo forgotten as he knelt in the cake. Cut the music, he barked. James worked fast, moving Emily to her side to clear her throat. I saw him check her pulse and eyes, his face getting dark. The hall held its breath. Margaret's hand was on her heart. My father pushed through the crowd. Moving her seemed to wake Emily a bit. Her hand still held the mic, and in her fog, she spoke. Her voice was weak but the mic caught it. Wrong glass. The drugged glass. The truth hung in the air. Everyone heard it. James stopped moving. He looked from Emily to my parents. His look was ice. She's not having a stroke, he said. This is a drug overdose. Classic sedative signs. My mother gasped. No, she wouldn't. James called 911, then stood over them. You will take her to the hospital. I won't call the police tonight. But if anything else happens, I won't be as kind. My father took a step back, silenced. The ambulance came. Emily was taken out on a bed, face full of cake. My mother went with her. My father looked at me with guilt and fear. I didn't look away. Then they were gone. The hall was a mess, but I felt relief. Pure peace. Rachel came to my side. I filmed it all, she said. The fall and the confession. I saw the truth spread through the room. The golden child had just confessed to a crime. Margaret came over. Well, she said with a dry laugh, memorable wedding. I told the manager to clean it up and bring more wine. The night wasn't over. James looked at me. First time I've seen you breathe. He was right. I danced with him and felt the weight lift. No regrets. The next day, my mother texted, "How could you let this happen? Family is family." I deleted it and blocked her. I blocked my father and Emily too. I cut the money ties. No more paying her debts. Freedom felt like fresh air. A year later, I was 8 months pregnant with a girl. James and I vowed, no golden child. Every kid is equal. That night, I posted my story online. Was I too harsh? Should I sue for the cake? Or was $10,200 a fair price to be free of toxic people? I hit post. James was making dinner, humming jazz. My baby kicked. The cake was gone. The ties were cut. And I was finally free.